Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. In 2005, I made a trip to Bangkok alone. Before traveling, I did some research online to find a cheap hostel room. I decided to stay at a modern hostel located in a private housing estate. The hostel was 4 stories high, and I was allocated a 4-female bedroom on the top floor. When I arrived at the hostel, it was already past midnight. I opened the bedroom door quietly so as not to disturb the 2 backpackers who were sound asleep. I chose to sleep on the upper bunk of one of the double-decker beds, mainly because the 2 lower bunks were already occupied. When I woke up the next morning, I realized I was alone. The 2 female backpackers had left the hostel. On the second night, I returned to the hostel late. When I unlocked the bedroom door, I noticed I had the room to myself that night. This didn't bother me, as I was used to sleeping alone. After cleaning up, I decided to move my belongings from the upper bunk to the lower bunk of the same bed. As I lay in bed, cooled by the air conditioning, I was about to drift off to sleep when an unusual thought suddenly crossed my mind: what if the bed shook? Immediately, the double-decker bed shook violently. For a few seconds, I stayed frozen under the blanket, pretending to ignore it, hoping that whatever it was would stop. I thought if I didn't acknowledge it, it would give up and go away. Seconds later, I felt a mysterious cool breeze blowing directly under my blanket, coming from an unknown source near my left shoulder. This couldn't have been the air conditioning unit, as it was located above the bed. The next morning, I woke up feeling alright, though I couldn't explain what had happened. I got ready and spent the day exploring Bangkok. By the third night, I felt apprehensive about sleeping in that room alone. I wanted to check out and look for another hostel, but I had already paid in full for a 4-night stay when I checked in. At the time, I didn't know I could request a room change, so I decided to brave it out for 2 more nights. That evening, I stayed up late, sitting on a couch outside the room and watching television. I hoped to delay the time spent in the room. However, my tired body and mind eventually needed rest, and I had no choice but to go to bed. As I stood beside the double-decker bed, just before slipping in, I saw a tall, skinny, translucent white apparition standing in front of me, right beside the head of the bed. I couldn't see its face, only its lanky, armless body. It looked as though it was wearing a white robe. Seconds later, it vanished into thin air. Strangely, I wasn't disturbed that night or on my final night at the hostel. However, I've never returned to that hostel since then and still can't explain how the bed could shake on its own. It was early 2013, and I was in Bangkok with a large group of friends. We split into 3 rooms on the same floor. If I recall correctly, it was either the 6th or 8th floor. The rooms were at opposite ends of the corridor, 3 girls in each of the first 2 rooms and 2 guys in the last room. On the first day, sometime in the afternoon after we had checked in, I called one of my friends in another room to check what time we'd be heading out. When she finally picked up, she told us in an urgent tone to come to her room immediately. When we arrived, she explained that as the phone rang, she heard someone talking to her from the living room. This was strange, because the other 2 girls were asleep beside her in the bedroom. That night, I was alone with friend 1 after our shower, just resting and minding our own business in the room. Friend 2 had gone to shop at the night market downstairs. After some time, we heard friend 2's voice chatting outside our room. It sounded like she was having a conversation, but we could only make out her voice. A few minutes later, things got eerier. Friend 2's voice suddenly turned into laughter. Both friend 1 and I got major goosebumps and turned to look at each other. We called out to check if it was really her, but there was no response, just silence. Then we heard her laugh again. Terrified, we called the 2 guys from the other room and asked them to come and fetch us. When they arrived, they confirmed there was no one in the corridor outside our room, and they hadn't seen friend 2 either. So we all stayed in the guys' room until friend 2 finally returned from shopping, 2 hours later. That same night, while we were dealing with our creepy incident, the girls in the other room experienced something as well. While they were chatting in the bedroom, the shower tap in their bathroom turned on by itself, then switched off again. The next night, while I was showering, I swear I felt like someone was watching me in the bathroom. Worse, I distinctly heard friend 1 talking to me from outside the door. But when I stepped out, no one was there. Both friend 1 and friend 2 were in the other girl's room hanging out. That was about it, no visual encounters, but a lot of strange sounds, eerie incidents, and endless goosebumps. I won't ever return to that place again, despite its awesome centralized location. The rooms didn't seem well maintained, and there was no Wi-Fi either. I want to share one of the most horrid experiences I've ever had, which happened during a holiday in Bangkok last year. My friends and I stayed at a resort near the seaside. I can't reveal the name, but it surely spooked the skeleton out of me. The resort was enormous, with hundreds of rooms, but the problem was that not many people stayed there, and the building itself was downright terrifying. It was dark, and at night, we could hear the waves and the eerie rustling of the trees. It felt like the place had some kind of evil aura. Our first night at the hotel turned into a nightmare. We had booked 2 rooms right next to each other. Everything seemed fine when we first checked in, but things started to go wrong when I went to bathe. While I was in the shower, I could feel something lurking behind me, something vicious. I felt so uneasy that I ran out of the shower in my bathrobe and told my friend about it. After that first encounter, around 11 p.m., we all stayed in the same room and watched TV. Suddenly, the phone rang. One of my friends answered it, and I swear, she turned as white as a sheet. She dropped the phone and put it on loudspeaker so we could all hear it. It sounded like a woman wailing and crying at the same time. We were freaked out and tried to call the receptionist for help, but no one picked up. That was strange. We decided to go down to the lobby, which was quite far, and we had to walk. Just so you know, the rooms we booked were more like bungalows. We grabbed our jackets and umbrellas, it was raining, and headed out. We held hands to calm each other down. All of us were girls, and we were trying to stay strong. But as we passed the pond, we saw something we shouldn't have seen. There was a dark figure of a woman wearing a shredded, dirty brown gown, staring at us. When I looked into her eyes, I knew she didn't belong here. Her eyes were as dark as night. Without thinking, we ran as fast as we could. But one of my friends fainted, so I had to carry her on my back in the pouring rain. I know this sounds unbelievable, but as we ran past the bungalows and trees, we saw her hovering above the ground, keeping pace with us. I was trembling, not just from carrying my friend, but from sheer terror. One of my friends, a Buddhist, began chanting mantras. Somehow, that gave me the strength to keep running. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the lobby, drenched from the rain. We told the security guard everything, and they let us rest there while they checked our rooms. This experience left me traumatized. For the first time, I felt like I'd encountered pure evil. I'll never forget how dark her eyes were. I was a former student of St. Hilda's Secondary School. I was in Secondary 3 back then when the school organized a history field trip to Bangkok. Part of the tour included staying a night in a floating, electricity-less chalet on the River Kwai. The River Kwai is a river that separates Burma and Thailand, and there we were, on that river. The place was really beautiful, so serene and peaceful, without the hustle and bustle of the city. But at around 6 in the evening, the place was already dark, partially because we were in the middle of a forest. To top it off, there weren't many lights, so we had to use oil lamps. On this particular night, right after dinner, the whole group of us sat outside our rooms in the open to talk. Then one of my friends suggested we tell ghost stories. Maybe it was pure coincidence, but the moment he said that, a really strong, heavy, sweet scent of frangipani filled the air. Everyone literally froze until the scent diffused away. After some time, I felt the need to stretch my back. As I stretched and faced the river, I wasn't sure if I was imagining it or if it was real, but I actually saw 3 white figurines floating cross-legged on the waters, looking right at us. I couldn't speak for a moment until one of my friends shook me, snapping me out of it. By that time, everyone else was already feeling uneasy, so we decided to go back to our rooms, to sleep. Just as I was about to get up from the floor, I felt something pulling me down. I couldn't get up. I tried to pull myself free, but to no avail. I remember trying to call for my friends, but I couldn't. Somehow, I managed to pull myself up when the elastic band around my shorts snapped. I thought to myself that maybe my shorts had gotten entangled with a nail on the floor. I dropped my hands to the floor to check for any nails, but there was nothing. I was running a high fever the very next day, which lasted about a week. Even now, I still wonder what pulled my shorts and whether the figures I saw in the river were purely my imagination. Just 2 years ago, my friends and I went for a short trip to Bangkok. While we were there, we stayed in a hotel in the Pratunam area. It was near First Hotel. Upon checking in, the 4 of us split into 2 rooms. I was unpacking my stuff when I heard knocking noises. It sounded like it came from the end of the corridor. My friend's unit was situated there. My roommate and I opened the door to check what was going on. Nothing. I was surprised. No one else bothered to look out at the corridor to see what was happening. As time went by, the knocks got exceptionally loud, and they were definitely coming from the area near my friend's room. After much discussion, my roommate and I braved our way to our friend's room. She told us that she heard the knocks, but ignored them. She was actually telling us to stop knocking on her door like that, as she was trying to rest. We tried explaining it wasn't us, but she was skeptical. Because she knew me as so unplayful, I was let off the hook. Finally, when the next round of knocking occurred, it was so loud that I could hear it clearly from my room. My room phone rang. My friend asked us if we were the ones responsible for the loud knocking. I replied, "Are you kidding me? We are both in the room watching TV. How can we be knocking on your door and in the room at the same time?" We got the hotel staff to come to her room. They started explaining that the knocks were coming from the wall. Another one said it was coming from the aircon. Bullshit to settle the matter. My 2 friends were given another room, just opposite mine. After they left their old room, we never heard any knocking sounds anymore. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.